Welcome back to Area DMG. I'm your host, Hope Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and for today's episode of Suki Nihon for Area DMG, we are looking at Pokemon Generations episode 16, which means there's only 2 episodes left after this, The Beauty Eternal. It starts with a press conference with Lysander giving an Apple-style presentation with the help of his Pyroar as he shows off the Holocaster that everyone has in Pokemon X and Y. It's actually kind of cool. I like how they did this. He goes to a little presentation where he shows up on stage and then the Pyroar attacks him and he disappears. And then he walks out from the smoke and stuff and it's all like, "That wasn't me, that was my hologram. This is my Holocaster." Think like an iPhone, but it helps you do like, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi" type stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then there's a little bit about how the Holocaster is such... Okay, that is... Holocaster. 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 If I'm not careful, I might call it a Holocaster, and I'm like, oof, that would be a tragedy. Anyways, my feeling on this is that it's kind of a cool little product. They have a little bit there where they mention that they can't make enough of them. There's like, they can't keep up with demand. And then you see Lysander, I guess he does a huge donation to like the Pokemon Center around that area. One thing I like about it is these Pokemon centers do actually work kind of like a free hospital essentially for Pokemon, not so much for people. It seems that they are kept alive by their community, and you find something similar to this in Pokemon Sun and Moon about, well, that's what happens. These are kept together by the community that surrounds them, which I find a kind of interesting thing. It's kind of like each city owns its own hospital, and they do all the funding for this. There's no central government that controls the majority of them, but larger businesses and such donate medicine and supplies to these as part of a goodwill operation to give back to society, and probably for a good tax write-off. Anyways, as he's getting into the car from his latest charitable work, he gets stopped by a reporter who asks about Project Y. Of course, Lysander's like, not going to talk about that. Then we get a part where he's in a boardroom with a bunch of people and they're like, "We need to know what Project Y is." And he's like, "No, you don't need to know what Project Y is. Instead, you need to fund it." Oh, before we get to that part though, we get a little bit of an interview between him and I guess a young actor or something. He's on a little coffee date. And you get kind of the vibe that Lysander's kind of he's like, "Everything that's beautiful must be preserved. We must preserve the beauty of things." You know, the type of person who'd be like, "These are my pets that I taxidermied so I can keep them with me forever. They're so beautiful." I'm like, oh, good lord. Anyways, yeah, of course he's crazy. But then after he steps out of the meeting, he's told to go to Geosage Town because they found like this stone that contains essentially Elvital. Elvital? Veltal? Is the Y silent? I think it's Veltal. Veltal. I named mine Baconbird. What did you name yours? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, Veltal. And he's surrounded by his Team Flare henchmen, and that's the end of that episode. Pretty good character study for him. And I think it's kind of interesting how with Pokemon Black and White and Black and White 2, Black 2, White 2, they kind of had like Gestus being kind of a father figure to N. And with this character here, you've got this character being kind of like, everything must be beautiful like me, and I'm going to preserve it all. And then they took like the villains from Black and White and the villains from X and Y and just combined them together to make the villains essentially in Sun and Moon, which I'm pretty far in. I haven't actually beaten it yet because I've been taking my time. I'm one of those people who's like, oh, I can start making eggs, so I'm going to start filling up a box with just the starters. Yeah, and Eevees and other stuff because that's what I do. I'm one of those people who's more about completing the Pokedex than like the story, the Pokedex, and then I don't really do competitive stuff. But I did look for a Ditto with a timid nature for some reason. I forgot why. Oh wait, because I like certain moves on certain Pokemon. I'm not one of those people who builds teams, sorry. But I think it's kind of interesting that they combine some aspects from the Black and White villains and the X and Y villains into the Sun and Moon villains. And then they just added a lot of gaslighting and child abuse with it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, some of these people don't realize that Pokemon actually does have a pretty good story and pretty interesting characters. They all have fairly complex motives outside of like what your initial representation of them is. In fact, I find that to be kind of refreshing, especially in Sun and Moon. I kind of like where these characters go. I like even the more simple characters have a little bit of layers and depth to them. It feels more like an RPG at that point, and less like clicking off boxes collecting things, which that's fun too, but there's other things, you know, like the little Pokepelago, the trading, a lot of the grooming stuff there. Pokemon Sun and Moon is pretty great, and you should pick it up if you haven't already. Maybe if you haven't already, you'll get it for Christmas, who knows. I'm playing through it, fantastic game, just pick it up. I thought this episode was okay. I actually kind of liked it even though it was a little bit slow. It looked nice, some really great visuals, and the main character is genuinely interesting in this. I thought it was pretty good. What do you think of this episode? Let me know in the comments below. Hit that share this if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you hit that little bell so you'll get notified whenever the next video is. Like this if you haven't already. And until the next episode comes out, you are now caught up.